Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing a deep dive on something you probably never even thought twice about.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. We use it constantly.
Totally.
But what if I told you
Yeah.
that electricity
Okay.
might have a dark side?
Interesting.
A hidden history that could make you think twice about flipping that light switch?
I'm all ears.
So we're going to crack open this book
Uh-huh.
called The Invisible Rainbow, A History of Electricity and Life by Arthur Firstenberg.
Okay.
And it's going to take us on a journey
All right.
through the history of electricity,
Okay.
but not the kind they teach you in school.
Gotcha.
We're talking about the shocking
Mm.
and sometimes unsettling ways
Mm-hmm.
that electricity
Yeah.
has shaped human health.
Should be good.
So
Yeah.
to kick things off,
Okay.
let's rewind back to the 1700s,
Way back.
when people were first starting to play around with this mysterious force they called electricity.
Right.
They were building these things called Leyden jars, which were basically the first batteries.
Yeah.
They could store static electricity,
Interesting.
and people were fascinated by them.
I bet.
But along with all the excitement and wonder,
Yeah.
there were some strange stories, too.
Like what?
Stories of injuries and even deaths from these early electrical experiments.
Oh, wow.
One guy,
Yeah.
Professor Muschenbroek,
I've heard of him.
he was a pioneer in the field of electricity.
Right.
Well, he had this near-fatal experience with a Leyden jar.
Oh, no.
He described it as feeling like a blow to his chest,
Ouch.
and it left him shaken for days.
Wow.
And he wasn't alone.
Really?
Another scientist,
Okay.
Professor Winkler, and his wife,
Oh, wow.
they also had some really disturbing experiences.
Oh, it happened.
After being exposed to electrical flashes, they
Yeah.
started having convulsions,
Oh, jeez.
nosebleeds,
Oh, my.
and they just felt incredibly weak and drained.
Wow.
You'd think these early warning signs
Yeah.
would have made people a little more cautious,
Right.
but that's not exactly what happened.
I don't know.
Despite these red flags,
Mm-hmm.
electricity quickly became all the rage for medical treatments.
Real.
Can you imagine this?
Really?
What, electricians,
Not even doctors?
not even doctors,
Wow.
setting up shop and electrifying patients for all sorts of ailments.
Interesting.
There was this real fascination with electricity's potential benefit,
I guess it was new and exciting.
but a curious lack of attention to the possible risks.
That's concerning.
It's like they were so focused on the good,
Yeah.
they didn't want to see the bad.
That happens a lot.
And this kind of blind spot, this idea that electricity was somehow separate from our biology, became even more ingrained in the late 1700s.
How so?
There were two big names in science at the time,
Who?
Luigi Galvani and Alessandro Volta.
Okay.
Now, Galvani,
Yep.
he believed that electricity was essential to life itself, that there was this living electricity within us.
It's interesting. But Volta, who invented the battery,
Big invention.
huge invention,
Yeah.
he argued that electricity was simply a physical force,
Okay.
nothing more.
Huh.
So, in a way,
Yeah.
Volta's invention,
Right.
as groundbreaking as it was, might inadvertently let us down this path
Okay.
where we saw electricity as this controllable force, something we could use and exploit
Yeah.
without worrying too much about the consequences.
I see.
And that brings us to a turning point in history.
What's that?
The arrival of the telegraph in the 1840s.
Ah, yes.
Suddenly, the world was connected in ways never before imagined.
It was a revolution.
But what if
Uh-oh.
this technological leap forward
Yeah.
came with a hidden cost?
What do you mean?
Well,
Yeah.
according to the invisible rainbow, there's a connection between the rapid spread of the telegraph
Okay.
and a simultaneous surge in cases of something called neurasthenia.
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 Yeah.
Not familiar with that.
It was a common diagnosis in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
Yeah.
People with neurasthenia experienced fatigue, anxiety, insomnia, and a whole bunch of other debilitating symptoms.
Wow.
The book highlights the case of Dr. Margaret Abigail Cleves.
Oh.
She was a physician who specialized in electrotherapy.
Oh, the irony.
Right.
Yeah.
So she was using electricity to treat her patients, but then she opened an electrotherapeutic clinic. And guess what?
What?
She herself developed severe neurasthenia.
So she was exposed to a lot of electricity.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's like a classic case of the doctor who gets the disease they treat.
That's wild.
So this neurasthenia thing, was it like a recognized medical condition? Did they know what caused it?
That's a good question.
Well, doctors back then really struggled to understand neurasthenia. They couldn't find a clear physical cause for it. And then along came Freud, and he basically dismissed it as a mental illness.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Essentially anxiety neurosis.
Yeah.
So as a result, neurasthenia kind of faded from medical textbooks.
It was just forgotten.
Almost forgotten.
No.
And the potential connection to electricity was swept under the rug.
That's so interesting.
And that raises an interesting question for you.
Okay.
Have you or anyone you know ever experienced symptoms like chronic fatigue, insomnia, or anxiety that might have fallen under this old diagnosis of neurasthenia?
I don't know.
It makes you wonder, could our modern always-on lifestyle with its constant exposure to electromagnetic fields be contributing to these kinds of ailments?
Thought-provoking question.
It is.
Sure.
And it's a question that's going to become even more relevant as we continue our deep dive into the invisible rainbow.
All right.
Because we've only just scratched the surface. We've gone from simple Leyden jars to a world crisscrossed by telegraph wires.
Yeah.
And the story doesn't end there.
Oh,
in fact, it's about to get a whole lot more controversial.
Oh, boy.
So buckle up.
Okay.
Because next, we're diving into one of the most shocking claims in the book.
Hit me with it.
The connection between the 1918 flu pandemic,
the Spanish flu,
the one and only,
wow,
and the rise of radio technology.
No way.
Get ready to challenge your assumptions.
I'm ready.
About one of the deadliest pandemics in human history.
Okay.
Because things are about to get really interesting.
Can't wait. All right, so the 1918 flu pandemic.
Yeah.
It was a global tragedy.
Absolutely.
Millions of lives lost.
It is devastating.
But what if this pandemic, it wasn't just caused by a virus? What if something else? Something else entirely?
Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
Yeah.
But also a little skeptical.
Sure.
I mean, what could possibly contribute to a pandemic of that scale, besides a virus?
Well, that's what's so fascinating about this book.
Okay.
It suggests a link between the pandemic and the rise of radio technology.
Radio technology?
During World War I.
Okay.
Think about it.
Okay.
Around 1918, radio was being used more and more.
Right, for communication.
Especially for military purposes.
Makes sense.
And at the same time, the world was experiencing this devastating flu outbreak.
Okay, so the timing is definitely
suspicious.
Suspicious.
Right.
But is there more to it?
Yeah.
Than just coincidence?
There are some intriguing pieces of the puzzle.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, first of all, the 1918 flu.
Yeah.
It had some unusual characteristics.
Like what?
That didn't quite fit the typical pattern of a viral pandemic.
Okay.
For instance, outbreaks were popping up simultaneously in geographically distant locations.
That is strange.
Which is not how viruses usually spread.
Right, you'd expect it to spread.
Gradually.
Gradually, yeah.
From one place to another?
Yeah.
Not just appear everywhere at once.
Exactly.
And another thing.
Yeah.
The symptoms were also unusual.
Really?
It wasn't just a respiratory illness. A lot of people experienced neurological and cardiovascular problems.
Like what kinds of problems?
Things like dizziness.
Oh, wow.
Insomnia. Delirium. Even convulsions.
That doesn't sound like the flu.
No, it was a very different kind of flu.
Yeah.
And to make things even more interesting, there's this story about two doctors in Edinburgh.
Okay.
Dr. Thomas Erskine and Dr. Arthur Knight.
Okay.
They were having some surprising success.
Oh, yeah.
Treating their flu patients with a very specific treatment.
What was that?
Calcium lactate.
Calcium lactate?
Yep.
That's not a typical flu remedy.
No, it's not.
What's the connection?
Well, calcium lactate is usually used to enhance blood clotting.
Clotting, okay.
Now, think back to those early experiments.
Right.
With the Leyden jars. Remember how they discovered that electricity could affect blood coagulation?
Oh, yeah. So the book is suggesting that maybe the radio waves were affecting people's blood?
Possibly.
In a similar way?
It's a theory.
And that's why calcium lactate was helpful?
Could be.
Wow.
That's the bold claim.
Bold claim.
But it's worth considering.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's one more piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
That's pretty fascinating.
I'm all ears.
Guglielmo Marconi.
The radio guy.
The pioneer of radio.
Yeah.
He experienced his own share of health problems.
Really?
While developing radio and microwave technologies.
Like what?
He suffered from bouts of depression.
Oh, wow.
Heart attacks. Other issues.
So maybe Marconi himself was a canary in the coal mine.
It's possibly.
Experiencing the effects of these powerful radio waves firsthand.
It's a chilling thought.
It is.
And the book doesn't definitively say that radio waves caused the 1918 flu.
Okay.
But it does raise the question.
What's that?
Could the rapid expansion of this new technology have inadvertently created an environment that contributed to the pandemic's severity or even its emergence?
Wow. It's definitely a theory that makes you think.
It does.
And if this potential connection between electricity and pandemics is unsettling, the book's exploration of chronic diseases in the modern era is even more thought-provoking.
It is.
So the book argues that the proliferation of electrical technologies throughout the 20th and 21st centuries has coincided with a dramatic rise in chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer.
Exactly.
So basically, as our world has become more electrified, our health has suffered.
That's the argument.
Okay.
And there's some compelling evidence to back it up.
Like what?
Well, take heart disease, for example. Researcher Samuel Millam, he studied the electrification of rural areas in the early 20th century.
Right.
And he found a surprising trend.
What was that?
Before electricity was brought to rural areas,
Yeah.
heart disease was primarily an urban problem.
Interesting.
But after those areas were electrified, heart disease rates in rural communities skyrocketed.
Wow. So they brought more than just light and convenience.
It seems that way.
To those rural communities.
Yeah. And it's not just heart disease.
Okay.
Diabetes and obesity. They were incredibly rare.
Really?
Before the widespread adoption of electrical technologies. But they've become global epidemics in recent decades.
Okay. I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
But how exactly are these electrical technologies impacting our health on a cellular level?
Well, the book delves into the science behind this.
Okay.
Suggesting that electromagnetic fields can disrupt cellular respiration.
Cellular respiration?
Basically, it means our cells.
Okay.
Which are like tiny powerhouses. They're not able to use oxygen as efficiently.
Oh, wow.
And this disruption can lead to a buildup of fats, sugars, and other metabolic byproducts.
So it's like our bodies are being bombarded by these invisible electrical signals, and our cells are struggling to function properly?
That's a good way to put it.
Wow.
And according to Firstenberg, this cellular disruption could be a major factor in the development of chronic diseases.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
And if all of this isn't enough, the book goes on to explore the impact of electrosmog on wildlife. And it's pretty alarming.
It is.
We're talking about the decline of bees, birds, amphibians, and other species.
Especially in areas with high levels of electromagnetic radiation.
So it's not just humans who are being affected?
Not at all.
Wow.
One disturbing example is the work of Alfonso Belmori.
Okay.
He studied storks nesting near cell towers.
Oh, wow.
And he found that the storks closer to the towers, they were struggling to reproduce.
Really?
Many nests failed to produce any offspring at all.
That's heartbreaking.
It is.
And it makes you wonder if these electromagnetic fields are having this dramatic impact on wildlife, what are the long-term consequences for us?
It's a question that deserves serious consideration.
For sure.
And, believe it or not, the impact of electricity may go even deeper than we can see or feel.
What do you mean?
Well, the book delves into a phenomenon known as electrophonic hearing.
Electrophonic hearing? What's that?
It's the ability to perceive sounds generated by electromagnetic fields.
Wait, you're saying we can actually hear electricity?
In a sense, yes.
Wow.
Research has shown that the inner ear is incredibly sensitive to electrical currents. Even people who are profoundly deaf can sometimes perceive sounds generated by electrical stimulation.
That's mind-blowing.
It is.
And does this tie into that mysterious hum that some people report hearing?
Absolutely.
So the hum is this low-frequency noise that people hear worldwide, often near power lines, radio towers, and other sources of electromagnetic radiation.
Exactly.
So the invisible rainbow suggests that Loran-C, which is a long-range navigation system that emits powerful low-frequency radio waves, could be a major contributor to the hum.
especially in areas where it was first reported.
So those people who hear the hum,
Yeah,
they could be literally picking up on these electromagnetic frequencies.
that's what the book suggests.
Wow.
There's even a story about a man named Clarence Weisk
Okay.
who used a special device to capture and play back the electrical frequencies.
Wow.
Experienced by a woman who was tormented by a mysterious noise.
And it turned out she was.
She was literally hearing electromagnetic radiation.
That's incredible.
It is.
Have you ever heard a humming, buzzing, or ringing sound that you couldn't explain?
Maybe.
Could it be electrophonic hearing?
It's certainly a possibility.
Wow. As we continue our deep dive into the invisible rainbow,
Yeah.
we'll explore even more startling claims about the hidden effects of electricity.
There's a lot more to uncover.
So we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah, from those early electrical experiments to the potential link between radio waves and the 1918 flu.
And how electrosmog might be messing with our cells?
Exactly. But there's one more big topic we need to tackle.
Okay, hit me with it.
Cancer.
Cancer. Okay, yeah, that's a big one.
Huge.
And it's something that a lot of people are understandably concerned about.
Absolutely.
So what does the invisible rainbow have to say about cancer?
Well, the book argues that cancer, which was once relatively rare, has become a modern-day epidemic.
Right, you hear about it all the time now.
And this rise in cancer rates,
Yeah.
it mirrors the exponential increase in our exposure to electromagnetic fields.
So the more electricity we're surrounded by, the higher the risk of cancer.
That's the argument.
That's a scary thought.
It is.
Is there any evidence to support that claim?
Actually, there's quite a bit of historical data that's pretty compelling.
Okay, like what?
Well, for example, cancer rates were incredibly low in populations with minimal exposure to electricity.
Okay.
Like Native American tribes living on reservations.
Right.
In the early 20th century.
Before electricity was widespread.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And then there was that curious spike in cancer mortality rates.
When was that?
In the 1920s.
The 1920s, okay.
Right around the time commercial AM radio broadcasting took off.
Oh, wow.
It's like each new wave of electrical technology brings a corresponding increase in cancer cases.
That's a pretty striking correlation.
It is.
Is there any research that looks specifically at the link between cell phone use and cancer?
Absolutely. The book highlights the work of Lennart Hartl. He's a Swedish oncologist who has studied the link between cell phone use and brain cancer. His research, which involved over 12,250 people with malignant brain tumors.
Wow, that's a big study.
Suggests a pretty clear connection between long-term cell phone use and an increased risk of brain cancer.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From fatigue and anxiety to heart disease and even cancer.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
So I have to ask.
Yeah.
Is the book saying we should all ditch our cell phones and live off the grid?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The invisible rainbow isn't advocating for a return to the Stone Age.
Right.
But it does urge us to be more aware
of
the potential risks of living in an electrified world.
Yeah.
And to consider ways we can minimize our exposure.
So what can we do? Should we be walking around in tinfoil hats?
No, it's not about going to extremes.
Okay, good.
But rather making informed choices.
Okay.
There are simple things we can do.
Like what?
To reduce our exposure to unnecessary electromagnetic radiation.
Okay, give us some practical tips.
Well, for starters, you can use a wired headset.
Okay.
Instead of holding your cell phone to your ear.
Right.
Keep your distance from Wi-Fi routers. And opt for incandescent light bulbs over compact fluorescence whenever possible.
Those are good everyday tips.
They are.
But what about the bigger picture?
Yeah.
Cell towers? The power lines? The wireless networks everywhere?
It's all around us.
Those aren't things we can just avoid.
That's where things get more challenging.
Yeah.
It requires pushing for stricter regulations on electromagnetic radiation emissions, promoting more research into the health effects of these technologies, and raising awareness among the public and policymakers.
So it's a collective effort.
It is.
Well, this deep dive has definitely been an eye-opener for me.
It has been for me, too.
It's made me think about electricity in a whole new way.
Me too.
And I have to admit, I'm a little freaked out.
I get it.
But also empowered knowing there are things we can do to protect ourselves.
That's the key takeaway here.
Knowledge is power.
Exactly.
The more we understand about the potential effects of electricity, the better choices we can make for our health and well-being.
Absolutely.
In this increasingly electrified world.
So to our listener, if you're feeling even a little bit curious or concerned after this deep dive, we highly recommend checking out The Invisible Rainbow.
It's a dense read.
It is.
But it's packed with fascinating and thought-provoking information.
And remember, keep asking questions.
Stay curious.
And don't be afraid to challenge the conventional wisdom.
Thanks for joining us on this electrifying journey.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, stay informed and stay healthy.
Take care.